Welcome, everyone. My name is Ephraim Katsir, and I thank you for joining Sephardic Heritage International in DC, or Shin DC today, for Sweeten Your Jewish New Year with Honey, a cooking class with Chef Susan Barocas. And before Susan begins, we're going to just have a very brief word from Rabbi Daniel Hadar from Temple Moses in Florida, who is our partner on tonight's program.
Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Great.
We hear you.
Great. I just want to welcome everybody. We just have a few moments over here because, you know, speaking, this is a big problem as rabbis that we speak between Jews and food. That's always trouble. So I don't want to get in too much trouble here. So I'm just going to share for 1 minute. You know, it's interesting that we say that we use honey, and some Sephardic Jews use sugar, some use honey. So what's the significance of honey on Rosh Hashanah? So one of the things that we say is that, you see, honey is not so easy to get. You see, sugar is a little bit easier, but honey, there's a whole process and whole mixing through, etc. So the honey is the idea that in spite of the challenges, we pull out sweetness. So tonight, I think it's very apropos that we are learning about the honey, or having a whole cooking session through honey and sweetness for New Year, that we could see and take the challenges that are in front of us from this old year and try to squeeze it out for sweetness for this new year. I want to wish everybody Anyada Buena Clary Dulce, a year of blessing, happiness, and health. And I look forward to seeing everybody here in Miami or in DC. Shana Tova.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Hadar. Shana Tova, Metuka. And so I just want to introduce Susan Barocas. Susan is a writer, cook, teacher, and speaker with a passion for healthy, no-waste cooking and Mediterranean and Jewish cuisines, particularly Sephardic food, history, and culture. She's the founding director of the Innovative Jewish Food Experience Project, and she served as guest chef for 3 seders in the Obama White House. And it's a great pleasure to have her here with us tonight so that we can sweeten our New Year with honey. Here is Chef Susan Barocas.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. This is, you know, honey is very special to me. Thank you, Rabbi, by the way, and Anyada Buena Dulce y Alegre, which is a Ladino greeting, which includes have a good, sweet, and happy New Year. And thank you, Ephraim, for arranging this. I'm delighted to be here. Honey holds a special place in my life. I will give you a true confession to start. The true confession is that my middle name is Honey, for real. And that has been an interesting, you know, in high school, not so great, but, you know, it's very, I actually have grown to like it, because honey in Spanish and Ladino is miel. And miel is actually the name my father wanted to name me, and my mother, this is going back into like, you know, mid 20th century. My mother said, yeah, we're not naming a daughter Miel. Nobody will know how to even say it. So the compromise was that my name is Susan Honey. And indeed, I got a cat this week, and I looked at the cat and I named the cat Honey Cat. So this is a week full of sweetness and honey. I just wanted to say, while everybody gets everything set, if you're cooking with me, get the ingredients set for Tish Pishti. We'll do that first. Actually, the recipes are in the order that we'll be cooking them tonight. I wanted to just say a few words about honey, because honey's mentioned, of course, in Torah a lot. And there's different kinds of honey. Now, some people say, you know, very often that the kind of honey that's mentioned in Torah is date honey. So there's two kinds of honey that, you know, basically take over the world. The first one is from bees. And there is evidence that people were collecting bee honey in the ancient world. There are some cave paintings in Southern Europe And they're really interesting because they show kind of a stick tree and two stick figures. One stick figure has climbed up a very rickety looking little ladder and you don't see what he's taking anything out of. You just see that he's climbed up and it's leaning against like what looks like could be a wall almost. And he has a bag slung over his shoulder, presumably for the honeycombs he collects. And down on the ground is another stick figure standing there. And then flying around are ginormous bees. So that gives you some idea of how people thought honey collecting was dangerous. And most of it was found in cliffs, which is interesting, and in nooks and crannies in stone cliffs. So that's one kind of honey. The other is the Ceylon, date honey or date syrup. And we're going to use both tonight. The Ceylon is lovely flavoring. And if you've never like mixed Ceylon with tahini as a dip, or you can put roast vegetables, cover roast vegetables with a mixture of Ceylon, tahini, and lemon juice is a great recipe for this in Sababa, Adina Sussman's cookbook. And, you know, toss your vegetables in it, roast them, delicious. And peanut butter and jelly, peanut butter and Ceylon instead, delicious. So Ceylon, date honey or date syrup, is made by boiling dates in water for a very, very long time and then straining them. So you have this kind of beautiful, this is what Ceylon looks like. It's a beautiful color. It's got a little thickness. You can see it clings to the side of the cup. And so that is presumably when the original species talks about honey, the first 7 species that were found in the land of Israel, because dates are one of the species, we assume that it's date honey. Now, for us tonight, we're going to get started. I also want to say that what the rabbi said was so interesting because some Sephardim, you know, there's this tradition of dipping the challah and the apples in honey, and some Sephardim dip in sugar. So it really depends on where you're from and what was available, and of course, as always, what your family tradition grew to be. So, all right, let's get started with the tish pish tea. So first, 4 cups of the all-purpose flour in a bowl, and then I have a cup of the walnut. Now I want to talk to you just briefly about walnut meal or almond meal, or ground walnuts versus flour. You can see, if you look at this closely, this is not powdery. You don't want flour. That's a different texture. When you use this kind of nuts, which is very, very common in baking in Sephardic dishes, you get a little texture. You get a little teeny bit of crunch and texture. So that goes in. This is one of my absolutely favorite cakes. And as much as I love baklava, I gotta say, this is definitely in competition. All right, so then we're going to put, oh, by the way, if you haven't turned on your oven, turn your oven on to 350 to preheat it. And also spray your pan. You're just gonna use like a normal 9x13 pan. Spray it lightly or rub a little oil, not too much with a paper. You can use a paper towel or your fingers. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're just blending these dry ingredients so that they will mix well. And baking powder and baking soda, we need a teaspoon of each. And these, by the way, oh, this one's bent again. These measuring spoons, very beat up, very well used. They're from my childhood. I have had these since I was a kid and first started cooking, which was when I was about 5 years old. Okay, a little more. Okay, so that's done. And then just take your whisk, blend it up so that you have no lumps, and so that the baking powder, baking soda, and nuts are really integrated with the flour. And the other thing that whisking flour does, you know, when I grew up, it was sifting. You had a sifter and everything was sifted. And then people started using strainers and you bang on the strainer and it makes it light. The only time I do that with flour anymore is when I'm making a sponge cake, because then it really needs a lot of air. But when you whisk like this, you're also putting air into the flour. Okay, now we go to the stove. This is such an interesting recipe. I don't know if any of you noticed, there's no eggs. This is a very old way of cooking. And so this makes this vegan, which is really, really lovely, except for the honey. Now, vegans often won't eat honey, but you can find another sweetener. Perhaps it won't be the same, but you could perhaps even substitute date syrup. It'll taste a little different, but it'll be delicious. So, okay, so what we're gonna do, this is one of those recipes that's kind of a dump recipe. So we whisk this together. Then you take all the other cake ingredients and this, except for the almond slices. So I have half a cup of sugar already in the pot. I'm going to put this flour. This is a recipe that will also give you a little bit of a workout. You'll see. Okay. Then, wooden spoon is absolutely the best for this. You want to add your cinnamon, a teaspoon of cinnamon. And I have to say, I always go a little over because I love cinnamon. So you're welcome to use what you like. And then we have a half a cup of sugar already in here. We need a half a cup of honey. I want to show you a trick. There's a couple ways that and you'll see when we do the syrup and the second way. But when I want to measure honey, and it can go in, you know, the truth is liquid measurements are supposed to go in a glass like this. And for something like this, it's fine if you use this metal, but spray it. Your honey will come right out. Watch this. So we'll get the half a cup in. Okay. Great. God, I love honey. All right. So we have our honey in here, and then we're pouring it. And before I scrape anything, I have to just show you what happened in this. Usually you're trying to get all the honey out. Oops, it's still coming. Let me just show you. There's almost nothing left in this cup. So that's a little trick. Makes working with honey much easier. All right. So we have, what are we missing? Salt. Now you say, this is being baked. Why are we adding salt? Salt balances flavors, and it brings out flavors. And we also have to add our 2 cups of water. Okay, that's 2 cups of water. And we're adding a cup of oil, right. Now, I don't use canola oil. A lot of people do. I do not like canola oil, so I don't use it. So it's kind of up to you. I like avocado oil, safflower, grapeseed. I find them to be oils that give better flavor. And something like avocado oil and grapeseed oil, they have very, very high fry points. So they're very good for sauteing food. They're great for latkes. You'll get really good crispy latkes. So here, now this is what the oil was in. So this is the second trick of how to measure honey. All right, we need a half a cup. This is an oil. I do this when I make challah too. Do the oil first, and then drop in your half a cup. Okay. All right. And by the way, just because, in case anyone asks, I use raw unfiltered honey because it's the honey with the most benefits. Honey is very, very healthy. As a matter of fact, if you have a cut or a wound, try smearing honey on it, and you'll be surprised, perhaps, but it really helps. And look at that, it just dumped right out because I did it where the oil was. That's it. No struggle. Okay. And now comes the fun part. So what we're going to do is mix all this together, and then we're going to heat it up, and it's going to thicken. And you really want to stir it well. Put your stove on medium heat, approximately. You don't want it too hot, because you don't want it to burn on the bottom. Okay? So we're going to just, you have to really stir. And by the way, Ephraim, if questions come up that relate to what I'm doing, go ahead and ask me during breaks like this, or if any other questions come up, but especially if it's timely. I don't want, if somebody has a question about what they're doing, I want to be able to help you.
Okay, sure thing.
Okay, I don't know if there's any questions yet, but there's all kinds of honey. And one of the wonderful things to do and I'm just going to let this heat up a bit. One of the wonderful things to do at Rosh Hashanah is to have a honey tasting. I often, or at least to have several kinds of honey on the table. And I usually have like a creamed honey. Sometimes it'll have cinnamon, a honeycomb, a piece of honeycomb that you can buy. I'll have, Manuka honey, which is a very beautiful, beautiful honey, very expensive. You can buy it in small jars. Just a nice raw and filtered honey like this. All right, starting to heat up. It's already starting to thicken. So this is going to get very, very thick. It's going to give us a little bit of a workout. We need for it to come to a boil and be smashing lumps.
Susan, I think there's a question about how much honey
Cup went into the cake.
Did you use a second half cup of honey? Someone asked.
A second? Yeah, no, a second half cup. Yes, I did. You're right. You caught me. Yep. That was the half cup. Well, this is going to be a very sweet cake. That was I needed to put a cup of honey in for the syrup. So this has a cup of honey instead of half a cup. Thank you for catching that. That'll be interesting. You know, baking is often a science, which is why I actually cook more than I bake. But I still like to bake. And when you have a recipe like this, it's far more forgiving than a lot of other recipes that rely on, they need to rise a lot, they need to be flaky. This is a pretty, you'll see, a pretty solid kind of recipe. All right, this is just starting to thicken quite nicely.
Sebastian wants to know if he could use agave instead of, he says he doesn't have enough honey right now.
You know, agave, yes, but I find agaves sweeter than honey. I find agave really sweet with a sweet aftertaste. So you might think about using a little less, unless you want to, like, I just doubled the honey on this, though. But yeah, it's okay, use agave. And actually, if somebody is vegan, perhaps that's a way to go. I can feel it really getting thicker. Anyone else who's cooking, you can probably feel it getting thicker. Unfortunately, there's still some lumps. Not usually. Okay. Get them all out. Okay, we're going to do this until this comes to a boil. And then we're going to take it from the stove.
Roberta wants to know if she should use 1 cup of water or 2.
In the cake, it's 2. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you, I just made this a different way than what I wrote to you. The way I wrote to you would be that you wouldn't have added the flour yet. You just would have heated up the liquid ingredients. And I know people who do it this way. And I ended up doing a different way. So either way is fine. If you haven't put your flour in, bring the sugar and the honey and the water and the oil to a boil. Take it off the heat and then add your flour. Okay. All right. It's funny how you have patterns, you know, you have this kind of habit of doing things. And I do this both ways. And tonight I thought I would do it the other way. I didn't. So either way. Okay. Okay, this is really getting thick. You have to really work it. If you haven't, the other way, you're putting the flour in and it's a very, very thick batter to begin with. If you're adding the flour to the hot honey and sugar mixture and oil. But here you can see it's already thickening up quite a bit. But you have to keep stirring if you've got this over the heat with the flour. You've got to keep stirring.
Melissa wants to know if she wants to have the portion, would it be exactly half of all the ingredients?
Yes, if you ever want to change a recipe, normally it's half of everything. And you would have to change the size of pan. Just use a little 8x8 pan, like you'd make brownies in. Because otherwise you'll end up with a very thin cake. Okay. Okay. So, I actually think that this needs a tad more. And I'm going to take it off the heat. I've turned the heat off. You want it to be so thick, it's almost like a dough. Okay. If you do it the way that the recipe's written, it's a little easier, and you usually don't have to add more flour. Okay. Here we go. You can see probably how thick it's getting. Really, really thick. Okay. Scrape your bottom as you go. Even if it's off the heat, things will still stick to the warm pan. And all right, so we have our pan here ready. I'm still not quite, this should be a little thicker even. How's everyone's dough? If it's too thick and you literally can't stir it, you can add a little more oil. If it's a little too loose like mine, add a little more flour. That's the loveliness of a recipe like this. It isn't as exacting as a lot of baking. Okay. So, and I don't know if any of you who are cooking can smell. There's this lovely, like honey, cinnamon smell to it. And whenever you're cooking, use your senses. I mean, use your touch, your smell, the sight, tasting all the time. Well, not this, but actually you could.
Monique has a question. She says that her batter is not so thick yet. She wants to know if she should add more flour.
I need more information. So did you do it my way or the way the recipe's written? Maybe you could unmute
Monique,
her.
you can turn your video on and
the way the
give
recipe.
Susan more info.
Yeah, I was following the recipe, I guess.
Great. So you brought it to a boil, the liquid, right?
Yeah.
Turned it off, added all your flour and nuts.
All the ingredients are added. I mean, the flour, the cinnamon, the whatever, the honey, everything is inside.
Well, how thin is it?
I can show you.
There.
Look.
What? I
I'm
can't
showing.
see. I can't see it.
Okay, so.
Well, here's the deal. Is it pasty like this, where it's not drooping off a spoon?
No, it's still more, it's still not so.
Yep, definitely drooping.
It's still drooping.
All right, well then add some more flour and stir it in. It should be a warm, hot mixture. I'm dumping mine. I'm plopping it all into the pan. Okay. Does anybody else have any that they're cooking and it's working or not working? Oh, this is a thick, it's very doughy and thick, and that's what you want. Actually, let me get, this tis kishti is a very, very old recipe. That's why it has no eggs, because it used to be, although baking powder and baking soda are both from like 18th century, I think. My dates are right. And you can see I'm patting it smooth. So what you want to do is pat it smooth. You can use your hands if this isn't too hot. Oh, it's okay. I could use my hands. Or you can use, if you use your hands, you could even, here's a little trick too. When you need to make meatballs and you don't want to use water, everybody always uses water or matzo balls. Put a little oil on your hands and you don't have a water. So what I'm doing here, if you can all see, I hope, is I'm smoothing the edge. You want a nice smooth edge. You can see it's rough, it's up and down. You want to go and really make it a beautiful smooth edge, and you want it to fill the pan evenly. So I hope you're all finding success with a doughy. There we go. And the spatula works great. My technique is I usually kind of go down on the edge all along and then come back in and flatten it back out. And it's pretty clean that way. All right. One more.
Mary wants to know if she can use whole wheat flour.
Ah, you know, I wouldn't use all whole wheat. I have not tried it, but it's very much heavier. Also, you might want to think about using white whole wheat, because white whole wheat cooks up a little more like white, even though it's whole wheat. And my next goal is to make this without flour, to use to make it gluten-free, because I think that would be great. And I think just using more nuts, and I might use like chickpea flour. I have to play around with it, or brown rice flour. But anyway, okay, I'm going to show you. This is what mine looks like. Okay, the edges are fairly smooth. The last thing you do before you put it in the oven, I'm cleaning my hands. Okay, so this is very similar. It's one of those soap desserts. It's very similar to baklava, for example. In fact, you even cut this one into diamonds. So I go across diagonally. I go, so it's a little sticky. So we're gonna just oil the knife. Okay. All right. So you want to get some lines in there. If you don't, it's okay. You can do it when it comes out of the oven. But traditionally, and you know, it just depends on how big you want to make it. It's just to score it. Okay. And I'm not cutting all the way through by any means. All right, I'm going to spray once more. All right, so here we go. You can see it makes a big difference when you spray the knife. Okay, and then you go across the other way and you score it. And one of the reasons, aside from creating an attractive diamond-shaped pastry, is that it also, the scores are going to help us know where to cut it And then when we pour the sauce on it, which is something we do with baklava, same thing, then, okay. So I always find an end. So I found the end of the corner, and I just go across the other direction. And sometimes they match up better than other times. I once did an event a couple years ago for my synagogue sisterhood, and I made tish pishti for, I don't know, 100 people, whatever it was. It was quite a few. And so these little corners were left because when I plated it beautifully, of course. You don't put the little scrungy corners on there. And what happened was so funny. People came in the kitchen because we ran out. People were eating 2 and 3 pieces of this cake. We ran out and people were coming in the kitchen wanting to eat those little corners. It was really fun. Okay, that is done. So this is going to go in the oven. Okay. And if any of you can just get it in. It cooks for about 40 minutes, I believe. Yeah, 40 to 45 minutes. All right. So we're going to get the sauce going. You know, we want to get that syrup going because it does need to cook a little bit and cool. The trick with baklava and all of these syrup desserts is generally if one component, the cake or the syrup, is hot, then the other component is cooler. So we're going to pour this on the cake pretty soon after it comes out of the oven. So we really want to have it. So that the sauce is done and has a few minutes to cool while we're making everything else. All right, so the syrup is a cup of sugar. And I'm just trying to, whoops. I want a little more. Okay. And we need a cup of honey. I may have miscalculated. You're going to have to excuse me a minute. I have to go grab some honey out of the cupboard. But we need a cup of honey that you're putting in the pan. Okay.
While you do that, Annette wants to know how long this will bake in the oven.
40 to 45 minutes. We'll check it at 40 minutes. And actually, I should put my timer on. Okay. Let me put my timer on because I did put it in.
Susan, is the temperature for the oven 375 or 350?
350.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So we've got the timer going. We've got the honey. And I taught you that beautiful trick about the oil, which I just promptly forgot to do. Oh, well. Luckily, there are scrapers. But, you know, this is good. Here's the proof. Look how much I have to scrape all this out. So, all right. So what's going to happen with this syrup is we're going to add to it no, that's after. This we're just going to do. Okay. Turn it on. Stir it. It has to blend together. And I need a cup of water in with this mixture. Okay. This is very, very similar to the syrup, the same as some people's syrup for baklava. And it's interesting, some people use orange blossom water for the tish pishti. I happen to really love the citrusiness of using lemon. So I use lemon juice and lemon zest. All right. And I need to add the lemon juice. All right. So you're adding your syrup ingredients to a saucepan. Hopefully your cakes are in the oven. And we're on to syrup. And we're doing a couple tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. And I just love this stuff. And then this is 2 tablespoons of lemon zest. Whenever you're going to juice any citrus, limes, oranges, lemons, be sure to zest them first, because that zest will keep in the refrigerator or in the freezer. It'll keep in the refrigerator for weeks in a little jar. And it'll be there when you want to just sprinkle it on a vegetable or some fish or some chicken, or use it for whatever. And you do want to use fresh lemon juice. It's very important, because most lemon juice, and there's even an organic one that's at my health food store. It's really nice. It's actually a decent one, but it's not the same. And it has no additives at all. It is lemon juice, but it's packaged. And so if you can, use fresh. All right, so we're just going to stir this, keep going for a minute. So everything's blended. It's about on medium right now. Okay.
I'm not sure if this is a rhetorical question, but Monique says she has both lemon juice and orange blossom water. And it's asked, which one should she use?
You know, which flavor do you like better? I have both too, but I made the decision because I just love the lemon. You know, just whichever one you think you're going to enjoy. You can use orange blossom water, and then you would put the zest in also. So you'll have a little of both. So that might be a nice combination. You could also leave the zest out if you don't want to do, like, let's say you don't have any lemon, or you don't want the lemon flavor. You could make this cake by just putting in the orange blossom water and no lemon juice and no lemon zest. And it would be fine, because they're not ingredients that are going to affect the consistency of the syrup so much. So, you know, if you're putting in 2 tablespoons of liquid, either lemon juice or orange blossom water, then that's what's going to affect it. All right, so my sugar's all melted. What you want to do at this point is turn it up to a higher flame. Okay. And then it'll boil. And once it boils, we'll reduce it and I'll put it on the back burner, and we're just going to let it cook. It'll cook away. And we are just about ready. I hope everyone's keeping up to move on to the Sephardic honeyed apple. My favorite. I love these apples. Okay. These are a very special way to eat apples. And yeah, there's a little more in there, you know? There's just a little more in there. It's not going to hurt this. It's going to just make it that much sweeter. All right. Good. So this is almost at a boil. I think you can kind of see in the pan, the edges are starting to boil a bit. Okay. So what we're going to do is I have 33 minutes, by the way, left on my cake before I'm going to check it. I don't know where you all are at. And one of the reasons it's important, because the salmon we're going to do, we have to crank the oven up to 425. So we want to get these cakes done. Oh, I have to pull the cake. Oh, I did something. I forgot the almonds on top of the cake. So there's a way to decorate. Let's see if I can. Let me just see real quick where we're at. I'm going to do it on just a couple real quick, so I'm not losing too much heat, and you'll see it afterwards. So I can show you in a minute. Luckily, this isn't a cake that actually rises very much anyway. So, here. I'm just going to show you all real quickly. This is what I just was doing. And so we're just going to do a few more real quick. That's the traditional way to serve it. I apologize. I have to read my own recipes. Okay. So most of the pieces have it. Good. All right. It's going back in the oven. All right. It was too much there. So if anyone did not do the almonds and you'd like to do a quick, you can do that right now before the cake goes too far. The truth is, and I wouldn't do this with a lot of other cakes because to have lost the heat, to have interrupted the baking process at this point, things could fall. But this is a cake that has no eggs and it doesn't really increase in volume very much. So what we're really doing right now is cooking off the ingredients to make them into a cake, so to speak. Okay, that came to a boil. Anyway, so you can do that real quick if you need to. And I just wanted to show you what I had done is I have, you know, I'm going to start plugging Trader Joe's here, but I love the nuts at Trader Joe's. They're reasonably priced. These are their slivered, sliced almonds. And I just go through and pick out the ones that are whole and pretty. And that's what I like to put on the cake. So, okay. So we have our syrup. Is going to just sit and simmer. All right. And I'm hoping that people are with me. We're going to move on. It's going to cook about 15 minutes. So I have, you know, I can follow along on my timer as you can. Okay, so we're going to do the honeyed apples. Okay, so I had said to please have your apples quartered and put them in the lemon juice. And I did this an hour ago. Lemon juice is a miracle. They didn't turn brown. I am using Honeycrisp. And actually, I got to go pick these last week at Homestead Farm, who has great apples. But you want to use a crisp apple. Don't, you know, the truth is that something that you think of like Granny Smith. Granny Smiths actually don't hold their shape so well. So it's not really a good apple for this. John Gold, Brayburn, the Honeycrisp work, Damon. These are apples that will hold their shape. Okay. So, one challenge. I just have to think things through. Okay. Let me do this. Sorry, excuse me a moment. It helps to have a pot to cook them in. Okay, and I'm going to move my syrup back and keep that just simmering so it'll thicken. Okay, now we're going to move on. All right, so let's talk about these apples. So hopefully you cut them into quarters and you have something like this, okay? So what you want to do is just go in. This is such an easy way to core an apple with very little waste. And that's important, like this is all. Now if I core them any other way, I just will eat around whatever I take out. But you can do it down on a cutting board, just that little sliver. And there's really not much left. There's a little bit of that kind of shell from a seed that's a little tough. I just cut that out. So however you're comfortable handling a knife, either down on your board or in your hand. Now these, I used 5 apples and they weighed, believe it or not, exactly 1.5 pounds. So don't worry if you're a little over, little under. it's okay. All right. So what you want to do when you quarter these, it depends on how big the piece is. Let me show you what you're going for. I'm only cutting this one into 3 pieces. So let me show you the back. You can just see how thick they are about in the back part. Okay, so they're, what is that? 1/4 inch to, I don't even know. I'm terrible about that. This one's a little bigger. So I'm going to cut this one to be consistent into 4 pieces. Okay? So just try to be as consistent as you can, and the truth is that it's going to taste great. And if you're using large apples, definitely your quarters are going to be cut into at least 4 pieces, or maybe 5, depending on how large they are. Okay. So we have our apples. I hope you're all able to kind of keep up. It's hard to do a cooking class with so many people and having people cooking along. So if anybody's getting into deep water with something, let me know. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make the syrup for this, and we're going to leave it. Okay, so we want it to start cooking. So you're setting aside your apples, and we're putting another 1/2 cup of honey, and I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay, that's about 1/2 cup. Okay, so 1/2 cup of honey goes in, and we're putting another 1/2 cup of sugar. My 1/2 cup is dirty, so we'll just use 2/4. Make sure. All right. You can see that I'm really exact in the kitchen. Sometimes you need to be, and sometimes you don't. So the whole idea, you know, I've tried doing this with just honey. Sugar actually is almost like a thickener when it heats up, because that's how you make candy, right? So you heat up the sugar, you make caramel, you make candy, and that, it works on the honey the same way, which is actually very interesting. Okay. Get that going. All right. So we have, now this has to melt, obviously. So I have it, I'm going to put it on like medium high. Don't want it on too high, because sugar burns very easily. So you have to be careful. That's why I'm also stirring. I want it to all dissolve. And then we'll turn it down. And I want to also add, at this point, I'm putting in cinnamon sticks, and I'm putting in some cloves. I adore cloves. Not everyone does. But, you know, what I write on here, to use 6 or 8. Okay, I might add a couple more. I just love the flavor. All right, you can see it's really starting to cook. And if you don't like cloves, don't use them. You know, I find that powdered cinnamon changes the color of this dish, so I don't like to use it, but you certainly could. I'll just make it a little browner. All right, I need to turn this down, and this is going to need to cook now. All right. All right, so this is going to cook down for about 15 to 20 minutes, which is exactly the right timing. Let's see, how's my other syrup doing? Whoops, almost. The other syrup is cooking. I don't know if you can see back here on this back burner. I've got the syrup for the cake going. Okay. And I've got this. We have a lot of honey syrups here. We have one more to go still. All right. All right. There we go. We're going to let that just cook. Yep, the honey is, yep, we're gonna leave it uncovered and let it cook. All right. So we're gonna move on while the syrups are all cooking. Are there any questions, first of all? Ephraim, any questions right now? Oops. I'm not, if you're talking, Ephraim, I'm not hearing you.
I don't see any new questions.
Okay. Okay, great. Oops, you want this, so you want the syrups to kind of boil some, but not to burn. And that's always kind of a tricky in between. All right, that's kind of starting to thicken up. It needs some more time, the one from the Tish Pishti. Let's see. And this one needs the juice of a small lemon is about 2 tablespoons. So, but the thing is, the 2 tablespoons of lemon are in the apples. So we're not adding more. Okay. When we put them in this pan, we will have added the nice, lovely lemon. And it's so interesting that these sauces are like almost like a sweet tart, which is very much a Jewish thing, Ashkenazic and Sephardic, kind of the sweet and sour. Think about cabbage. You think about how you make stuffed cabbage or lots of different kinds of dishes that might have in the Sephardic world. You'll end up with something like a stuffed vegetable, which will have tomato and lemon and pomegranate syrup or sugar in a gravy form. So it's this sweet and sour. It's really lovely, and we can get into all kinds of symbolism for life and how it's a combination. So perfect for the high holidays. All right, they're cooking. So we're moving to salmon. What I need to do is make space. If any of you haven't figured it out, I have a fairly small kitchen in an old row house, and I'm always juggling things all over the place. So right now we're juggling burners, and we're going to move this syrup to that burner, and it will cook. We're going to move this to that burner, and it will cook. Now, let's talk about the sauce for the fish. So this is a really, really, really simple fish. And in fact, I've made it for a few years in a row. We were doing a Ramadan dinner at Adas Israel, the synagogue, and I was cooking with volunteers in the kitchen. And this is the salmon we made. And it's a great break the fast kind of salmon. It's great to serve. Sorry, I don't want this to burn. Okay. We're almost ready with the syrup for the apples. All right. So what you can do with this sauce though for the salmon, first of all, let's get the, in here I have my honey, oil, and I wanted to show you about garlic. And I have some pepper and salt. Okay. So if any of you have seen me do garlic before, when it needs to be mashed, I really love grating it in. I also have a garlic press. I get a lot more pleasure somehow out of doing this with the grater. Same grater I do for my zest. Of course, these are stubborn skins on the garlic. I haven't had this before. Okay. So what we're doing is we're just going to literally grate in. Here we go. Okay. It's so fast and it's so fun to do. I don't know why. I guess you got to take your pleasure in the kitchen where you can get it. And for this dish, to be honest, it's going to go in the oven and just end up. So I don't know about you all, but I think we're going to drop this in, and then I think we're going to have to pay attention to the apples. I know there's a lot of juggling back and forth tonight, so we're trying to accomplish a lot in our time together. And if it's too much, just do something on your own tomorrow. If you don't do it all tonight together, you have the ingredients, you have the instructions, make it and have a lovely, lovely Shabbat.
And that's Susan. Marla wants to know how much oil you used.
In what?
Marla, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Okay. It's a 1/4 cup of honey, a tablespoon of oil, 2 cloves of garlic. I put the juice and zest of a small lemon, some salt and pepper. So if that didn't answer the question, go ahead and ask again what you need. So I'm putting more garlic. You could use less. The other thing you can do with this that's delicious is you can add some spices if you like. I have done it with fresh ginger, delicious. And I have done it adding a little bit of Aleppo pepper for a little spice. And many of you might know, if you've cooked with me before, that my favorite pepper in the world is Aleppo pepper. And has just a little bit of spice. I'll show you it. I'll pull it out of my spice cupboard. Okay, here's my Aleppo pepper, which actually is from Turkey these days, given what's going on in that part of the world. And you know what? I do love it. So I'm just going to sprinkle some in. You could put a pinch of cayenne, or, I mean, if you have something you love. And like I said, ginger's really good. You could, if you wanted, add turmeric and get it kind of this golden color. You're almost working into a Persian chicken, salmon, excuse me. Okay, so let me just use a different spoon here. All right, now my salmon is washed. I just want to cook this a little bit. It's all melted, beautiful. And this is what we're going to use to brush on the salmon. All right, so what I did, I washed the salmon. I patted it dry, so you don't want like the moisture. The salmon won't roast as well. Now, there are 2 schools of thought on salmon, how to cook it when you roast it. There's the slow school and the fast school. I tend to do things fast normally anyway, so of course I'm on the fast school. So for me, I have had the best luck, 425, probably 22 minutes. 20 to 24 minutes, this piece doesn't get too thick here. I'd say it's about a 22-minute piece, maybe a little more. And it's so good. What I find is it just starts to caramelize on top a little bit, and then it has this lovely inside texture. And I do like it cooked through. That's why I don't like it overcooked, but I'm not a raw salmon person. All right, so all you're gonna do, and actually I think I'm gonna let this cool for just a minute, and let's add the apples. If you remember those good old apples, let's go back in.
Monique has a question. She wants to know if you put the apples in the syrup with honey and sugar.
Okay, so you made a third or whatever. I guess it was a second syrup, and it was honey and sugar, cinnamon sticks and cloves. Okay, and then it had that was it, because the juice from the lemon went on the apples. So you cooked it down, and I want to show you. It almost got like candy. Oops. Okay. So let me show you. All right. I don't know if you can see the shininess. It's sticking to the pieces because we let the syrup cook down. Now what's going to happen okay, is the apples. We're just going to cook them until they're softened. We don't want these to be mushy, although then it's like a kind of candied applesauce. But nice if they hold their shape. So we're just going to let this start to cook. We're going to turn up. We have it on a pretty low light. Going to turn it up a little bit. Right now I'm turning it up to a little above medium and just giving it some good stirring. And this is while my sauce is cooling a little bit. The sauce I'm going to use on the salmon. Why? Because I don't want it to hit the salmon and be so hot that it almost starts to cook the salmon. So we're going to do that. And the other thing that you should do if you have a moment is give your tishpishti sauce or syrup a stir. I find mine thickening a little. It's not as thick. This, because there's no water in the syrup with the apples, it's thicker initially. Now what you'll find is the apples as they cook release a lot of water. So we don't want water in there until that because that's going to happen. And I am going to make a lot of jewelry. I am going to cover this. Oops, wrong lid. Okay. I really am going to cover this. Yes. The reason is because I want this to cook fairly quickly and evenly. And I normally do this in kind of a deeper pot, and I stir it around every so often, and it does that. These are spread out. It's going to cook a little differently. So that's what I want to do. All right.
Mary wants to know if the fish has skin, is the skin up or down?
Down, like mine. You can see how mine looks, maybe? Can you see? Like this, it's up, the skin is down. Okay. So we have our apples cooking. I have 10 minutes more in my cake. I don't know how much longer you all have, and we're not putting the salmon in until the cake comes out. All right. So, cool down a little bit. We're just going to take like a pastry brush. You could use a spoon. And we're going to just brush this all over. You can pour a little on if you want and brush it around. You really want to give it a good bath. And what I always like to do is I lift it up, get underneath. Really, there's plenty here to really give it a good amount. Okay, brush it all over. Oh, how interesting. I just felt a humongous bone. Excuse me, I'm going to cut this out.
Eileen wants to know if the tishpishti needs to be refrigerated when done.
Yes, cooked fish should be refrigerated. But let it cool first. You don't refrigerate things till they cool. Okay? Wow, that was weird. That was a really huge bone. All right. And I'm just leaving the pieces. I love using my hands, as you can tell, also. And I would pour all of this and just let it have fun. Let it be under, let it be over.
Eileen says she was referring to the whether you need to refrigerate the cake, the cake, the tishpishti.
Oh, no, you don't. And in fact, this tishpishti is going to taste better tomorrow and the day after. Just like baklava. You actually don't want to eat a cake that is soaked in syrup the day you make it. You want to leave it sit, and they get better. And there's no egg in this cake, no butter or dairy of any kind. All right. I'm just going to look we're leaving, these are done. The salmon's done. So I just want to take a peek. See, my apples really are already, there's a lot of liquid in here. So soon, I might even take off the lid at some point so that they don't get too, actually I'm going to do it part way on, just leave it a little cracked. Okay, now we have our Tishbishti syrup. I don't know about you, but mine is plenty hot. Okay, and sorry, I was just checking. I just got to notice my phone is getting hot. I don't know why. Maybe from the oven and stove, so hopefully we'll be okay. So this is just going to stay here. In fact, I'm going to set it aside here on the stove until we're ready. Check the apples once more. The syrup for your Tishbishti should be off. Yeah, they're starting to get soft. Okay, I'm going to keep the lid off. Just kind of got them started, but I want some of this water to cook out again. This, believe it or not, these simple apples, instead of regular apples and honey, which I also serve, but this simple apple dish has been requested year after year. I can't have Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur without. And these will keep a couple weeks in the fridge. So if you make it now, you have it for next week for Rosh Hashanah. And it could even last, although there probably won't be any left, through Yom Kippur in the refrigerator. All right, we're going to move on to the dates. Let me just rinse my hands real quick. I have honeyed hands. Okay. So we're going to move on. Is everyone okay out there in cooking land? All right. It's always so weird to do these things when you don't have any response. It's like being a stand-up comic in a vacuum. Not that I'm a stand-up comic, but it's like that performing in a vacuum idea. All right. So let's talk about the dates. If you don't have medjool, you can do it, but they need to be soft. And they need to be a good date. Medjool are definitely what's traditionally used for this. And you want to take the stem off. Most of them have a stem on these medjool. These are like Israel grows beautiful medjool dates. And that's what this salon, all this Israeli salon is made from, the date syrup. And you just want, these are pitted. So let me tell you, usually medjool are very expensive and often have pits. So here's another plug for Trader Joe's. These are pitted, organic, and hechshered, which is pretty amazing. It's kind of like everything you could want out of your date, including the fact that they taste amazing. Be sure to give your apples a stir every so often. I can see that the color's starting to change. A lot of them are getting just a little translucent, and that's what will happen. So they also sell dates with pits, and you might have dates with pits. So I just want to give you like a little tip. Let's say that this was a date with a pit, okay? All you're going to do, oops, let me see. I don't want to do it again, so let me find, okay. All you're going to do is take your knife, a sharp pointed knife, you just run a little slit, which in fact is what you find in each one of these dates because they were pitted. And then you just squeeze the end and you're going to pop the pit out and there you go. It's not a big deal to pit them. But they had these already. And in fact, it's really funny because I'm having trouble finding the slit in a lot of these. It's really kind of, yeah, I have to actually cut some of them. A little weird. All right, so I'm just going to do a few. This is the kind of thing that you can have prepped and ready before dinner, and you can just do the drizzle and after when you're ready to eat. Now, I want to talk also about the simanim, all these special foods for Rosh Hashanah that are so symbolic. So what we've done is honey, of course, runs throughout. If you're doing a Sephardic Rosh Hashanah Seder, you know, you have beets or beet greens, or spinach is one, leek is another, squash is another, peas or beans or black-eyed peas is another. These are all symbolic foods that go with the blessings, this simanim. And pomegranate, of course, because pomegranate could go with anything, anytime in my world. Now, they didn't have very good-looking pomegranates today or yesterday when I went shopping, so I'm going to cut this. You never know. It's actually not so good. Okay, let me see if this is better than I can show you the two. You never know. Yeah, okay. You never know. It's like a watermelon. You never know. So look at the difference here. You can see this is very pale. I'm not sure what I'll do. Oh, this is very pale, sorry. You can see that they're not all rosy red beautiful. I will often save those and crush them and use the juice in something, but it doesn't have as good a flavor. This one, on the other hand, they're rosy red, beautiful, and what we're going to do is...
Susan, real quick, someone asked if the cake is ready because it smells like it's burning.
Well, they should check. I don't know when theirs went in.
Yeah.
So definitely open it up. You can do the toothpick test if you want. And let me see if mine's done. Yeah. Press on it and see how it feels. Mine is has 32 seconds left. I'm going to pull it out. Whoops. I'm going to pull it out and crank my oven up to 425, which is what you should do when you take your cake out. All right. So let me show you what it looks like. Now, and also, let's just try it for the heck of it. Let's try the toothpick test. So that was my buzzer going off, and it was perfect. The toothpick test comes out clean. Test yours. If you have any questions, test it with the toothpick in the middle. Comes out clean, it's done. And I am very happy. Look at this. So what we're going to do, we have a lot going on. I hope you all are keeping up. I know it's a lot at once. All right. So check your apples. Mine are almost done, not quite. There's some that are a little, that I want to get into the water. They seem to have been on top. I want to make sure they all get this beautiful. When you put these in the refrigerator, when they cool and you refrigerate them, they kind of will have a little more of a candied quality to them. Some people do this where they actually cook the syrup to the softball candy stage. It's just not my tradition, but some people do that, especially from what I understand, people from Rhodes, the Sephardim from Rhodes. So you're welcome to do that. And again, they just are a little different. Everybody has their own traditions. The important thing is that we cook and that we keep the traditions going and that we gather together as best we can, even if it's on Zoom, and we eat together and we share memories and recipes, and we keep the recipes going, because this is part of our traditions. And if it's not your tradition yet, you can, at any point you want, you can make it your tradition. You can be, if you're a wannabe Sephardic, go for it. Come on over. I actually am mixed, half Sephardic, half Ashkenazic, and I do cook both, but I just feel the tug and the pull towards the Sephardic much more. My apples are done. I'm guessing if yours have been cooking away, you should be close to done also. and I want to show you what they look like. So they get a little translucence. Let's see, the lighting's not so good. I hope you can see. There's a little translucence to them, and they're shiny from the syrup. And literally, I'm just going to set them aside, let them cool, put them in a container, and then on the day that I want to serve them, put them in a beautiful bowl, put them in something special. If somebody gave you a gift, this is the kind of thing that you really want to use it to bring in a sweet new year symbolically also. So do it in something special. Maybe it's a bowl your kid made at school or whatever. I'm not saying it has to be the most beautiful bowl in the world, but it should be meaningful if you have that option. Okay, we need to move back to the cake real quick, because what we want to do, I'm going to play another switcheroo here. We want to be able to, we might go a little bit over. If people need to leave, please feel free to. Otherwise, we'll just do what we are. All right, what you want to do, this has been out about 5 minutes cooling. So you follow these and you cut really nice, beautiful straight lines all the way through. Okay? All the way through. Boy, I have somebody coming for Shabbat dinner tomorrow night, distanced on my deck. They are going to be surprised. The salmon. By the way, we're going to pop the salmon in soon. If you wanted, if you're serving this for Shabbat dinner tomorrow and you don't want to cook it tonight, you can put this salmon with this sauce on it, wrapped up really well. If it's on the cookie sheet, just cover it with foil, wrap it really well. You could put it in your refrigerator uncooked and then cook it off tomorrow. And it would just be like marinating it in a sense, even though it's not your typical marinade, but it would have nice flavor. You don't have to do that, certainly. But if you wanted to, so that you cook the salmon and serve it warm, you can. I love serving this salmon at room temperature, which is another thing that makes it great for entertaining. You know, it's a wonderful, as I said, breakfast, terrific. Buffets, Shabbat, when you want to be able to relax and not worry about timing everything perfectly. So I'm a big room temperature person. All right. So now comes the fun part. We're going to pour about half of the syrup. And to be honest, I like to use a little ladle or spoon of some sort, so I don't just dump it on. Stir your syrup around. And what we're going to do, and this is just like what you do with baklava, I pour down the cracks and then I go over the top. That's my system. You will develop your own. The cake is going to suck up this syrup. Oh, my oven's hot enough. It's going to just suck this up the same way baklava does, only even more because of the flour. So, you know, you can see there's not even anything hardly on the top anymore. It just goes down in the cracks, in the cuts rather, and it will soak it up. And, you know, I'm actually, sometimes I have been known to actually let it sit overnight with one syruping having happened. And then tomorrow, when the cake is cool, heat up the syrup and do it another time. That's just another way to do it. But we can wait, you know, a little while. Okay. So there we go. That is our syrup. Let me just get this out of the way so you can see. Okay. And there you go. And you can see that it did rise some from the baking powder and baking soda, but it's a very dense cake. Those of you who cook know this is a heavy pan. And I'm going to do exactly what I suggested that you all do. First of all, though, I'm going to put if your ovens are hot, go ahead and put and you're cooking tonight, put your salmon in, and I'm setting it for 22 minutes. We'll see what happens. It's at 450. You know, I said this, I want to put, this is what I would serve my apples in. And as I dish them out, I pull out various pieces of either cinnamon stick or clove. And, you know, this was a dish that was given to me by a very dear friend. And to be honest, she's since passed away. And this is bringing her to my table. And I think that through food, through the things we serve food in, we can really bring people who are dear to us, family and friends, to the table with us. And this year more than ever. So, you know, when I serve it, I kind of like the way it looks to like have a cinnamon stick sticking out, maybe two. All right. Oops. Get this out of there. All right. So this is one plated beautiful dish of, and it's too hot. I'm not even going to try to eat it because it's a little warm. Okay. Now, I want to show you how to proceed with your beautiful, beautiful pomegranate. My method is to spank the pomegranate. So some of you have done this with me before. What I like about it, aside from the fact that it gets everything, like, you know, oh, anything you're thinking or feeling, work it out. It's so fast and so easy. So you grip the pomegranate so it stands up a little bit in your hand. And you use the back of a wooden spoon. You don't hit it on the top. Nothing comes out hardly. You go around the sides and you will see it just starting to rain pomegranates. And sometimes I set the bowl in the sink. And, you know, because you can get splashed a little bit sometimes. So if you're wearing light colors, set the bowl in the sink and do this. You won't get splashed. But look, this is almost empty already. And so far I have no white membrane. I know there's another method where you cut it underwater and you seed it underwater. And the membrane floats to the top and the arrows, the seeds, stay on the bottom. One of the things I don't like about that is I love all the juice here. I have pomegranate juice appearing, and I do have a few pieces of membrane. That's it, 3 of them. So here we go. What I would do is I would do both halves of this, and I would save and decorate both the dates. And these look beautiful. You know, the recipe says on your salmon to do, you know, lovely herbs all cut up. Let me show you what I've done, because I'm big on these herbs. And Persian food, you know, this is a small amount for Persian cook, but for us, it's got cilantro, parsley, dill is in there, and mint. And what I would do to serve this salmon, because it's not going to be done before we leave, I don't think. I would scatter this all over. I put the salmon on a beautiful dish. I would scatter this all over it, and then I would sprinkle some pomegranate arrows. You can also just put the herbs around the outside if you'd rather. But the pomegranate arrows will be beautiful. And this is the pomegranate season, so you got to take advantage of it. We're just coming into it. That's why the pomegranates aren't all amazing. And look at that, it's done. There's like 2 seeds left in here. Fabulous, okay? So let's go back to our date real quick. And let me just, okay. All right, so now what to do with the date. So most of the time when I'm serving these to people, I do them with goat cheese or mascarpone. Guess what? I didn't have any. And also I never use goat cheese for myself. I don't like it. So this is actually feta. You can whip it up more if you get a beater out. You make it really smooth. I don't have a problem with it being like this. I just put a little bit of, I think it was oat milk is what I had in here, okay? And a little salt. And so I'm going to show you stuffing the dates both ways. Okay, and plating, because with these dates, plating them is a big thing. So when you're doing the cheese filling, if you have a creamy filling like mascarpone or the goat cheese, and it's nice and creamy, put it in a small plastic bag, okay? Get it all down in a corner, cut the tip of the corner off and squeeze it in. When I cater, that's what I do, because then I can go boink, 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 boink really fast. It's like a make your own pastry bag. Here, not as important to be so quick. So what I'm going to do is load it in with just a nice small espresso spoon. Okay, and I like them overflowing. I try to keep the edges a little clean. So that, I'm going to show one more. All right. Some of these stuff easier than others. It's funny. It's like some of us, right? All right. And maybe I'll do one more. 3 is a good number. All right. This is my dinner tonight, by the way. That's why it's better. Then I will enjoy it. Okay. So there's 3. Now, the nuts. So the nuts are interesting because nuts come in different sizes. And I happen to have, and these traditionally, some people say, oh, it has to be walnuts. And some people say, oh, it has to be almonds. You know what? It has to be whatever you enjoy and like and have. And I use raw nuts for this. So these are raw walnuts. And I just like to stuff it down in there. It's big enough. That's it. That's it when you're stuffing with a nut. Very, very, very simple. Now, here's an example of a big date. And if I wanted to put almonds in it, because my almonds are small, most likely I would put 2 or even 3. I think I would do 3. I like having them stand up a little, kind of sticking out a little, show off. Okay. And there we go. I do like to squeeze them together also so that you can kind of get a peekaboo experience going on. But that's all there is to it for the dates. So I'll do one more. And then I want to just, so that I can show you the plating. Okay. Usually there would be more on here. But for now, we are going to just do it this way. Remember, we were talking about the lovely date syrup. And that lovely date syrup is now going to get drizzled. You can use honey, regular honey. You can use whatever you like. The date syrup is nice because, again, it's vegan if anybody cares. So I'm pretty generous, but you don't want them soaking in it. And you do this at the last minute, right before you're going to serve. Okay? Oh my gosh. Mix that into oatmeal. So good. Okay. And then I'm going to sprinkle pomegranate arrows. And you know, I was going to do chopped pistachios. They are still in the refrigerator. So I'm just going to chop up a few nuts here of almonds I had left. Okay. So there's that. And, you know, sesame seeds are also another symbolic food for some people at Rosh Hashanah. So I like putting sesame seeds on at least one dish I'm serving. Okay. These are black and white sesame seeds. Yeah, it's tilted. I've got a drunk one. All right. And then my crowning touch on these that I love is a little bit of sea salt. And just regular sea salt is fine. Or I treated myself to a box of Maldon, which is the flaked sea salt, the great finishing salt. It doesn't take much. You kind of crunch it in your hands. And just a little goes a long way. Very pretty. Okay, so that's, there you go. That is the dish for the, oh, I was hoping it was going to be done. That is the figs, stuffed figs. Now, any last minute questions? Do we have anyone who has any questions? Because I guess we should be done pretty soon here. No questions?
I guess, Susan, I have a question. So you put cheese on only half of them and nuts on the other half?
I just did it so I could show you both. And you can do whatever you like. You can just make them all nut. When I take these, if somebody's serving a meat meal, they're getting the ones with nuts. And I serve these as part of my Sephardic Rosh Hashanah Seder at the beginning of the meal, because I like to have a lot of the food that's symbolic gets cooked into different dishes. I make a squash, like a salad that uses squash for that one. But, you know, some things I like to have some things to eat while we're doing the blessings, the 7 blessings. The Yehi Ratzon, may it be your will, is these blessings. Okay. So yeah, it's really what you'd like to do. You could plate this every other one. You could just do one or the other, whatever you like. And if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions, this is a great time. I have to taste one of these apples. What I love about them is there's still some crunch. They're not overly sweet because you've used a good kind of semi-tart apple. And notice I didn't peel them. Okay, and the lemon, at the end, the lemon kind of is beautiful. By the way, the syrup from this, and there's some syrup sitting in the dish, I don't know if you can see it, is beautiful with challah dunked into it. So you still have some dunking rights there. Okay, anyone else? We could, you know what we could, just out of curiosity, taste a teeny little corner and see where it's at least. Oh, you can see the honey is soaked down in the edges. It's pretty warm. Just have a quick. It's lovely. It's just, and for me, it's a taste that I associate with Yom Kippur. I don't tend to make this cake that often. I'll make it for a special Shabbat. I make it for Rosh Hashanah. Sometimes I'll take it to a break fast. And as much as I have here, it's going to last a while this year, which is great because this can last on your counter for like a week. You can put it in the fridge. I often will, after a few days, I'll refrigerate it. But you actually don't have to. But that's just the way I am. So let me just, any other questions? It's not ready. No other questions. Wow. Okay.
I have a quick question. I thought you only used half of the syrup on the cake.
I did. It's not done. I will either syrup it again tonight in a little bit. I like it to soak in, or I will come back tomorrow and syrup it I'll warm up the syrup and put the warm syrup on the cold cake. I most likely will do it tonight. What? Oops.
I didn't realize you weren't done talking because the fact you served yourself the piece without it, that's why I thought maybe I missed something.
No, I served myself a piece with half. I served the cake with half the syrup.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I just had to taste it.
I understand.
You're welcome to do that too. And it's the corners. It's just like the people who came back in the kitchen, you know, looking for the corners. Anyway, anyone else? Unmute, ask a question.
Yes. So for the apples, how do we know when it's time to turn off the fire? It's like from the consistency of the.
Yeah, you want to make sure that most of them are softened and they start to get a little translucent. But you know, you don't want a whole lot of them. Like here, I cut one thin, and you can see it got pretty wimpy. Okay, and you don't want a whole lot of them that cooked, even though they still taste
Tastes good.
Yeah, but you want, when you use those kinds of apples that hold their shape, here you can see they get a glossiness and they get softer. You do want them to not be a raw apple. So my suggestion, I don't remember, I think I usually cook them around 15 minutes. I'm not sure what it says in the recipe. But I always taste. I mean, the thing is, stir them, taste. When you think you might be there, taste.
You said not to refrigerate. You said they'll stay for a while, the apples. Do you refrigerate them?
Yes, the apples should be refrigerated and they'll last a good 2 to 3 weeks.
Really? They don't get more really mushy in the fridge?
No, because there's nothing to make them mushy. They're cold.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they're really good. When these get
yeah.
cold, they kind of, the candied part of them really comes out.
Okay. Thank you. This was wonderful.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you for coming. And I don't know who's speaking because I'm only seeing myself. So you can tell me your names. That's good too.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Esther, and thank you for a really enlightening and sweet evening. I really appreciate it. I missed what type of apples that you use. Would you be able to tell me?
Of course. And it's also on your recipe sheet that you got emailed. I happen to use Honeycrisp. How appropriate, right?
I'm not sure.
Honeycrisp, but you can use Stamen, Brayburn, any of the apples that keep their shape. So you can go online even. There's like charts of apples. I don't know if you know this, but there's hundreds of kinds of apples. We just don't have them. So
I might have printed the wrong email that you sent out because I have all the ingredients, but I have no direction.
Okay, so this evening, and it may have come too close to class, Ephraim had sent the recipes out. So check your email, and if you don't have them, contact Ephraim at Shin DC.
Yes, you can email us at info@shindc.org.
I have a quick question from.
Thank you so much. Have a happy new year.
Thank you. You too.
Happy and healthy.
Shana Tova, this is Myra again. And I don't have the recipe handy because I'm on a little cell phone. But when you first made the cake, you mentioned it wasn't sugar. It was some other word that you were using for sweetener. For the
I use sugar. Somebody was asking about agave instead of honey. Is that?
No. It was the when you had the flour, and then you put it into another bowl, and you said in that bowl is something, and it wasn't sugar. And I didn't catch the word.
It's actually only
in the cake itself.
The cake has sugar and honey.
Oh, you did say sugar. I must have heard wrong. Okay,
I think in the beginning you described salon, and maybe she heard that.
That's what I heard. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, that's not in the cake when we were just talking about the kinds of honey. Yep. Thank you.
Well, what is that? What is salon? What does that mean?
The salon is this date syrup that's made by boiling medjool dates in water and boiling them. And you get this beautiful syrup. It's date syrup or date honey.
Okay.
Do both ways, and I highly recommend you try some. It's really good.
You. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great.
And Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Anyone else?
Nope. That's
Okay,
it.
I only have 2 more minutes on my salmon. So
I have a
anyone wants-
question.
Yeah, go ahead. Good. Then I'll take the salmon out and decorate it.
Okay, do we cover the cake with saran wrap?
I don't like saran wrap for many reasons, including it keeps it too much moisture, liquid, because of the plastic seal. So what I do is I use aluminum. And I
Okay.
don't worry about it being really tight. You don't want this to get mushy, so to speak, from, you know, sometimes too tightly wrapped.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for everything.
You're welcome, Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Not of a.
Thank you all. Is there anyone else? I'm going to pull that salmon out in 1 minute. So
Okay.
there's time for a question before you see it.
I wonder if anyone has anything that they'd like to show that they've made.
Love it. You know what, Ephraim, can people post pictures on like Facebook or the website on your site so we can have different, I'd love to see people's things.
Yes, please.
Are you on Facebook?
Me?
Yes, we're on.
Yes.
Oh, Susan.
I am. Susan
Yes.
You are?
Yes, just as Susan Barocas, please. Yep, follow me.
I was just looking. Let me see.
SUSAN, BAR.
Oh,
But I would love it if Skin kind of collected a bunch of pictures from this.
Oh, that's
Wow.
great looking.
mashallah.
Oh, that's great.
I can't see. Wait. Put it back up. I'm gonna. Okay. Oh, you did it in a round one. Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
That's gorgeous. Enjoy. Somebody looks like they're excited to get to eat it. All right. Anyone else want to show? Okay. So I'm going to, I want to show you the really lovely, this is my salmon, okay? And you can see that in some spots, it got a little brown, little caramelized, which I love.
Susan, can you show that again?
Sure.
Thank you.
I always put either parchment or aluminum, but I cook with parchment. And, you know, some of this caramel, like really got caramelized, heavy duty.
Susan, do you spoon up the sauce and dump it on the fish again?
Oh, this sauce? Yeah, well, what I'll do, if I was serving it, I would probably, like tonight, I would go like, yes. It's now remember, it's caramelized a bit, so it's gonna, you're gonna see that. So if you don't like it, don't do it, but this is what I would do, exactly. Because it's beautiful. It's like a caramel sauce almost. So that's what I would do. And then, just because we're running so late, I'll show you quickly. I won't even put it on. No, I'm going to put it on a plate. Sorry. You're here. And, okay. Let me just show you what I would do. And it's a beautiful presentation, I think. So I move it very carefully to, there we go. Okay. There we get this a little, oh, doesn't want to move. All right, I didn't quite get it on the plate the way I wanted, but it's okay. All right, and then I would pile herbs. A bunch at the end that people can take extra. You do not have to do this much. Honestly, it's really up to you. And I do like to have some salmon soaking through, peeking through. So I might just remove a few to the sides. Okay. And it's really a fun dish. Lovely. There we go.
It's beautiful.
And like I said, you know, do the herbs that you like. If you don't like cilantro, don't use it. But there we are. There's our dishes. Yay! We did it.
We did it.
Yay.
Anybody else? Otherwise, I'll say good night.
Thank you
Thanks
very
so
much
much.
again. Yep.
Thank you all for coming. Really, Happy New Year. Shana
Happy
Tova.
New Year. Shana Tova.
Bye.
Yes.
Shana Tova. Thank you so much, Susan.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to say, everyone, Añada Buena, Dulce y Alegre. To you, Susan, and to everyone, thank you for joining us. And thanks, Susan, for a wonderful cooking experience this evening where we could gather safely and get a taste of the Hagim on Zoom. And so, again, thanks again to Temple Moses, Rabbi Daniel Hadar. Thanks to all of you. Tizku L'Shanim Rabot, Neimot, Vetovot. And please email us. Let us know what ingredients you'd like to see featured in future cooking programs.
Absolutely. Yeah, or techniques, or if there's some Sephardic dish or dishes you've been wanting to learn. And also send us your pictures from tonight. Or whenever you make these.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Añada Buena.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.